God has called me to speak very deliberately to the world in a teaching manner, as a teacher. And we're performing that by the many teachings that we present to the people. And this series of lectures that we're giving at this time related to dreams and visions, we've worked on it for about a year. It isn't something that we cooked up in just a few moments. And it's deep down within us. It's not something superficial. And we want it to be the same for you. And the dreams and visions of history, if we didn't add prophecy to it, you see, it wouldn't be too interesting. Yes, a man did have a dream 4,000 years ago, so what, you know? But if these are related for today, and if these have something to do with our spiritual knowledge, then it becomes pertinent that we understand them. We began and gave 2 lessons in our introductory of visions and dreams and trances and so forth, which were very illuminating. I know that you'll enjoy them. Now we've given 1 lesson on vision and dreams of history, and we're going to complete that in this present talk. And after that, we will go to who can have a dream or a vision. I think that's very necessary to let you know who can do this. Just special people, just priests, just rabbis, just preachers, who can do this. And then does God today communicate with mankind through a dream or vision? Is that true or not true? It's going to be really, don't miss one of them, please. We want you to enjoy them. But more than that, we want you to become so informed that you can know the truth. It's the truth that makes you free. So we appreciate you being in our study with us. You're always welcome. And it's kind of home, and we wish for you to feel that way about it. And we want you to know that in our teachings, we don't carry a chip on our shoulder of any kind, you know. We're not angry at anybody. Our insides are not growling or anything. We have no spirit of getting even with somebody. We don't even have a spirit of trying to prove something. We're really just the teachers of a very, very simple but very strong truth. And we're delighted that you're with us right now to enjoy this very much. So open up and here we go. We are now ready. We told you that it's very remarkable that in the Bible, Abraham was the first one recorded doing this. Seeing that he is a father of the faithful, I think we would expect that. And so it goes back a long, long time ago, over 3,000 years ago, that God began to deal with men on this basis of dreams and visions. And then we went also to his grandson, Jacob, who experienced a lot of dreams and visions. I mean, from the time he was a young man when he ran away from home until the end of his life, he was in that world of seeing and knowing things supernaturally by the mighty power of God. But other than, you might say, the cream of the crop, there were others that also were involved in this phenomena of dreams and visions. And as I told you before, there was a man in the Bible named Balaam, and that he is one of the most extraordinary persons in the Bible, that evidently he was a kind of a spiritist and a wizard that sometimes got over into the things that were right. You know, it's amazing how some people can mess around in good and bad, it looks like. Well, he was one of those persons. Anyway, Numbers 24:4 says, he has said, which words of God, which saw the vision of the Almighty. He says, I saw the vision of the Almighty, and I fell into a trance, but my eyes were open. Now that tells you more about the difference between a trance and a vision. You can have your eyes open also, but between a dream and a trance. And he says, how goodly are thy tents, O Jacob. Now this is what he was seeing. And the tabernacles of Israel, and the valleys are spread forth, and as gardens by the riverside. He is explaining to them they're going to come up out of that desert and come into the promised land. And here's a man that sees it, although he's not one of Israel. And in many instances, he was a prophet of not a Hebrew prophet, but he was a prophet that was doing it for merchandise. He was making money at it, and so it's something like today's fortune telling. And then it says that this man took up a parable and said, Balaam the son of Beor has said, and the man whose eyes are open. So all of his came through an open eye, whose eyes are open. You know, so that meant it was a vision or a trance that he was in. He has said, which heard the words of Jehovah. Now see, some way or another he'd gotten into contact where he could hear the words of Jehovah and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw the vision of the Almighty. I fell into a trance, and I had my eyes open. And so here we find a man, but he even told the enemies of Israel how to destroy her through intermarriage. And that's mentioned even to the book of Revelation, you see, this Balaam man that showed Israel how to sin and how to destroy Israel through intermarriage. And so it wasn't that he was a good man, it was that I'm only showing you that in history, there have been people that had extraordinary experiences, and they were real, and in the form of visions and in the form of dreams. Then we come back into the Bible, and we find that God took a boy, the son of Hannah, you see, a boy, and did amazing for him. It says in 1 Samuel 3:1, it says that Samuel ministered unto the Lord, or Jehovah, before Eli, and the word of God was precious in those days. Then it says the Lord called Samuel, and he said, here am I, and he ran to Eli. He didn't, he had this apparition, or he had this spiritual movement, he had this vision, and he didn't understand it, so he went to his teacher, to Eli, the head prophet of those days, and said, you called me. He said, no, I didn't, you go lie down. And Jehovah called again and said, Samuel, and he arose and went to his senior, Eli, again, and said, surely you called me, I heard you, and he said, you go lie down. And it says in verse 7, Samuel did not know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And so this was his first experience. He had to be taught, you see. Here he was receiving a vision situation, and he didn't understand it. He had to be taught by one older than he. And verse 8 says, and Jehovah called Samuel the third time. He arose and went to Eli and said, I know that you've called me. Eli said, now listen, honey, go lie down one more time. And if it be that thou hear the voice, say, speak, Jehovah, thy servant heareth. Samuel went and laid down, and Jehovah came in and stood. Now you see, and stood as at other times. So he was seeing a vision. Stood as at other times. And he said, Samuel, and he said, speak, Lord, thy servant heareth. And Jehovah said to Samuel, I will do a thing in Israel, at which both the ears of everyone that heareth it shall tingle. In that day will I perform against Eli all the things which I have spoken concerning his house, which I began. When I begin, I will make an end. God says, when I get started, there is no stopping me. It was too bad that this man Eli was a prophet, and also he was a judge. He ruled the country spiritually, economically, politically, and he didn't bring his family upright. His sons were full of the devil, full of sin. The preacher's sons were, and he wouldn't correct them. And now that's often happens with deacons and preachers and so forth. And your children are given leeway where others are not. If you don't bring up your own house well, you're in trouble with God, and you just better believe it. The next verse says, for I have told him that I would judge his house forever. Isn't that amazing? And for the iniquity over which he knoweth, see, it wasn't hidden sin, which he knoweth, because his sons make themselves vile, and he restrained them not. Now that's in verse 13. Maybe you ought to get a hold of that and keep it. And therefore I have sworn unto the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be purged with sacrifice, nor offerings forever. See, they'd gotten to a place that God said, I won't receive anything. And so Samuel had to go and show Eli all the vision. It says in verse 15, says, and Samuel feared to show Eli the vision, you see. So he had seen this thing. So we have it revealed that God did that. I know that for some of us, we like the New Testament part of the Bible to talk to us. And if you go to the new part of the Bible, you have the same miracle of visions and dreams taking place there. In fact, in Luke chapter 1, verse 22, it says, and when he came out, he could not speak unto them, and they perceived that he had seen a vision in the temple, for he beckoned unto them and remained speechless. This was John the Baptist's father, and God had spoken to him in there and said, thou shalt have a son, you should call his name John. And because he was older, he didn't think it could come to pass, and his wife, then God had said, well, because you didn't believe me, you won't speak until he's born, and you're going to name him John. So the first words he ever said when he got healed was, his name is John. His name is John. But in the New Testament, it begins right off with John the Baptist telling us that there is the same vision and dreams that will be taking place. Now, in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 17, and verse 9, it says, and they came down from the mountain, and Jesus charged them, saying, tell the vision to no man. Now, this was to Peter, James, and John, three very distinct persons and three very different persons, but they had seen Moses and Elijah face to face up there. They had seen them, Moses and Elijah, and had seen Jesus when he was transformed, and they had seen this not with a physical eye. They had seen this with a spiritual eye. If somebody else was there, they would not have seen it, you see. But Jesus said to them, you better not be telling them about this until I'm risen from the dead. They won't be able to take it. And there are times, and there are people that cannot take a vision. You know, they cannot take a vision. It's too strong for them. They just cannot do it. One of the celebrated persons of the New Testament, his name was Peter. And in Acts 10, verse 19, it says, while Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, behold, three men seek thee. And so the church turned into a worldwide mission by a vision, not by an instrument, not by a decision of certain people saying, now let's go worldwide. No, but a supernatural vision that God gave turned the thing around and made it to be different. And not only were they Israelite people or people of Abraham, but in Acts 10 and 3, you read of a man named Cornelius who was a Roman soldier. And verse 3 says, he saw a vision. You see, he saw a vision. And when he looked, he was afraid. He was afraid. And so he said to send and get Peter that he may come and talk to you. And told him exactly where he was, how he could find him. And so here was a man that was a soldier. And in verse 7 here, it says, an angel spake unto Cornelius. And then he departed. An angel. And so he was working in the air. Now nobody else could have seen that angel. It was a vision of an angel. You see, he saw him with his spiritual eye. If his wife had been there, children, they would have heard him talking, possibly heard the angel talking, but would not have seen, because he wasn't revealed, except to the one man there. Now we have to understand this, that if you're not in the vision, you don't see the vision. You have to be of the vision, in the vision, to see the vision. Those that are standing by never see the vision. And so here was a gateway open, you see, in order to reach out to the whole world, and this was the Roman soldier that helped it to be so. A person in the Bible greatly appreciated and greatly loved, and you know, it was a man named John, and he wrote the book of Revelation. We call him the Revelator. Some calls him John the Beloved. In the book of Revelation, in chapter 9 and verse 17, it says, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and so forth, and the heads of horses with the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke. So he saw the whole thing in a vision. And so the book of Revelation, the last book in the Bible, is almost totally a vision book. Not something reasoned out, not something talked out or anything, but a vision book. He saw this thing with his spiritual eyes, not his natural eyes. He saw that it was, and he wrote it down as he saw it. And that is the reason why you have the great book of Revelation. A man in the Bible in Acts chapter 9 is called a disciple. Acts 9 and 10, it says this man here was a disciple. I think that would mean he wasn't a leader, he wasn't a preacher, but he was a disciple. He was a follower of Jesus. And so a certain disciple named Ananias, and he lived in Damascus, and he saw the Lord in a vision. Isn't that something? He saw the Lord in a vision. So it was in a supernatural situation that he saw him in. And the Lord said unto him, arise, go to the street which is called Straight. I have been to Damascus on several occasions. And I've walked up and down the street called Straight. It runs from the east gate to the west gate, right straight through the heart of the city, splits the city wide open. The city of Damascus today, and it's still called Straight Street. And they still have the place on there where it is said that he came, were staying, and Ananias came and prayed for him, and he received his sight. And inquiring in the house of Judah for one called Saul of Tarsus, he is praying. He has seen a vision. He has seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming. So he saw a vision, and the one he's going to go to, who is Saul of Tarsus, he has seen a vision that he might receive his sight. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that simply amazing? And that's the way that the New Testament was actually born. That's the way the church was born. That's the way it began to move and to strength and power in this manner and way. And the same man Paul saw a great many visions. In Acts chapter 18, verse 9, it says, "Then the Lord spoke to Paul in the night by a vision and said, Be not afraid, but speak and hold not thy peace." So here was God talking to him in a very dangerous place when he was, his life was threatened, of course. And God spoke to him, but he spoke to him in a vision. That's what I'm trying to get across to you. If God did this 2,000 years ago, in the last days, it says he's going to have a greater manifestation of his power. People are going to supernaturally receive word from God, where to go and what to do. And if we're not ready for it, we won't be able to assimilate it. If our spirits are not ready for it, God will not be able to use us. And so we are preparing for the great move of God, thrust of God in the last days, just before Jesus returns back again. Of the same apostle, in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 1, he said, "It is not expedient for me doubtless to glory. I will come to visions and the revelations of Jehovah." I saw a man in Christ 14 years ago, in the body, out of the body, I don't know. You see, when you see a vision, your spiritual eyes see it, your eyes are open, you're not asleep, but he said, in the body, out of the body, I cannot tell. Isn't that amazing? That even 2,000 years ago, it was a difficult thing to understand. He says, God knows. But says, I was caught up into the third heaven, and I knew a man. Then he says, in the body, out of the body, I don't know. God knows. You see, he says how that I was caught up into paradise. I heard unspeakable words which is not lawful for a man to utter, to tell it again. And of such a one will I glory. Of myself I will not glory. But says, if I desire to glory, I will glory in the revelations. Look in verse 7. Lest I be exalted above measure of the abundance of the revelations God has given unto me. There was given to me a thorn in the flesh to keep him humble. Yeah, God knows how to keep us all humble. No problem there. So you can see that the New Testament also is alive with these very amazing, very remarkable instances of God talking to people through dreams and visions. Now, if I could go to secular history, just a little bit, please, so that you'll see that it is not totally in the Bible that we're talking about. In France, they have a piece of history related to a person called Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc. And she was a French girl born in a very small town. And when she was 17 years of age, she began to have visions. It was during the time of the 100 Years' War between Great Britain and the nation of France. Joan was born in 1412. And she had visions that God had chosen her to liberate France from the British. Now, when a 17-year-old girl from a village does this, but God began to do something through her. At 17 years old, she went before King Charles VII of France, and he tried to fool her. And so the story goes that you can read in your own books, in your own world book. The King Charles VII put a courtier on the throne, and she came in. She never even addressed the throne. She turned straight and addressed the king, who was not dressed like a king at all, and she had never seen him before. So immediately they began to have confidence in what she was saying, that God had chosen her to come and lead the battle at the city of Orleans. Our city in America, named New Orleans, is named after this city, Orleans or Orleans. I have been there personally myself in France, and this she did in 1429 in the 15th century. Then she also brilliantly led the French armies again against the city of Rheims in northern France. And again, she had great victories. But you never know what could happen to a person if other people would leave them alone. Immediately there was jealousy and there was hatred, and Joan was captured by some French, not the regular army, but some French, and she was sold to the British for 16,000 francs, about $3,000 in those days. Of course, $3,000 in those days would be worth $25,000 today in value, I imagine. But Joan was burned at the stake in Rouen. I have been to the very spot where she was burned. I've seen the statue that stands there commemorating this remarkable French girl. In Rouen, France, on May the 30th of 1431, when she was only 19 years of age, the British burned her at the stake. and they call her a witch. Now, it's amazing. It is amazing that if you get a relationship with God, all your enemies will call it bad. Yeah, you have to get ready for that. If you're going to move in God, the devil don't like it. And so you really have to move by yourself into God. And this young lady, in 1925, in our day, was canonized as a saint by the Roman Catholic Church in Rome. And so it came a long time later, 500 years later. They remembered her and gave her what was due her all the time, that a girl that God had heard her prayer, and God had anointed her to bless the nation, and then even before she was old enough to bless it. Although I want to tell you that she asked to go home after the 2 battles. She said, I am released in my spirit, I want to go home. And King Charles would not let her go. And that at that time was when she was captured and surreptitiously sold to the British and was burned at the stake in the city of Rouen in central France. Now, also, of another nature altogether, there were visions and dreams. Lord Alfred Tennyson, one of the great poets of all of history, in 1842, which is 142 years ago, Tennyson saw a remarkable vision. He says, for I dipped into the future as far as I could see, and I saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. He saw our day. I saw the heavens filled with commerce, that's your airplanes, argosies of magic sails, that was the plane with the wings on them, pilots of purple twilight dropping down the costly bales, and heard the heavens filled with shouting, and there rained a ghastly dew, poison gas upon the people, a ghastly dew. For the nation's airy navies grappling in the central blue. See, they had never known such a thing as air fighting in his day. Far along the worldwide whisper of the south wind rushing warm, with the standards of the people plunging through the thunderstorm, till the war drum throbbed no longer, and the battle flags were furled. He said there's going to be an end to all this war. In the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the world. And so he actually prophesied the Antichrist, that there would come a time when there would be the Parliament of Man. The Antichrist will do that. He'll bring all nations together. And a federation of the world. The world will come under a federation under what we call the Antichrist and rule the world. It is remarkable to me that Lord Alfred Tennyson saw this so many years ago in 1842 or 142 years ago. It only shows you that God has the ability, you see, to tell things and tell them precisely. He saw airplanes. He heard of sky fighting, of poison coming down from the sky, and he saw the Parliament of Man, the Federation of the world. But I know you'd like me to come closer, and I will. We have living today a woman called Jean Dixon. She is a mystic, and a seeress. She saw, for those living in the 80s, she saw what she called the World Holocaust. She said it would take place in the 80s. Now, in her book called A Gift of Prophecy by Ruth Montgomery, it says that after this period, the forecast that Rome will once again become the world's foremost center of culture. When Russia is defeated, the economic nations of Europe that are confederated together now in 10 nations will be the controlling power of the world. And it says it will be a center of culture, learning, and religion. And the Middle Eastern child, which is the Antichrist, whose birth she witnessed in a vision with King Nefertiti on February the 5th, 1962, says he will unite all the warring creeds and sects into one all-embracing faith. And so here we have again, you see, even in modern times, those who are standing up to prophesy and saying that they saw it either in a vision or in a dream. I hope I'm getting to you and that you're seeing the potential of visions and dreams from the Bible and also from history, that it is not only secular and it's not only religious, but that they take place in both. In fact, the greatest dreams in history were by emperors and kings. We'll get to that a little later, that it's amazing that God dealt with the leaderships of them, rather than the people that could just go around and tell it. He planted them where they could be told with great authority by their powerful leaders. May I bless you, please. Now, Lord, bless my neighbor and bless my friend right now. Show them the day in which we live, that in these last days you're going to deal with men on a glorious basis, and many of it will be with visions and with dreams that are spiritual and that are guiding us in these last days, besides the Word of God, which guides us at all times. Bless them just now, teach them just now, and bring us into full truth just now. And we thank you for it.